We're live. You need to unmute yourself, Lawrence, and then we're ready to go.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Friday, 16th of April. So we've got a little theme today. You know, considering that it's spring is in the air. I know it's not quite May Day, but spring is in the air. We're going to talk about something, but before we do, it's the usual mantra. The slaughterhouse of failure is not in our destiny. We will persevere until we succeed. That's Ogmandino, a little modified. So spring is in the air. Why am I saying that? Because it's time to clear many of the cobwebs in our mind, to start looking at what we have as dogma, as character, emotions. You know, what drives us, who we are, who are we? And this is a question I always ask myself, who are we? And if we look and see who we are, and we take a really close look and a brutal look at ourselves, which I think we should do periodically. You know, are we emotionally driven or character driven? Are we guided by our feelings or our character? Do we make decisions based on character or what is emotionally expedient? Is being popular more important than sticking to your principles? You know, these are all things that we're going to discuss a little bit today, because it's a difference between driven by character or driven by emotion. You know, we like to be popular. Really? Okay. But what's more important is being popular something you really, really like? Or is being principled something that's more important? So that's what we're going to be looking at today.
Spring's a great time to start looking at things a little bit differently. Up here in the Northeast, we're coming out of 6 months of gloomy weather. It's been cold, it's been damp, it's been cloudy for 6 months, gray skies. And this is my favorite time of year because, you know, it's a regrowth and rebirth. And you know, when spring comes around, people start thinking about spring cleaning, right? Or doing house cleaning, cleaning up their yard, cleaning up their house, getting rid of things that they don't need anymore, that are a burden to them. And so it's a great time to also start thinking about doing some mental house cleaning and some mindset house cleaning. You know, thinking about what you want to do for the rest of the year, where you want to be for the rest of the year, how you're going to get there for the rest of the year. You know, coming out of 6 months of Northeast weather, you know, it's, you know, coming out of that it can be quite depressing at times. And so coming out of that with a positive attitude and looking at, you know, the trees are getting new buds on them. It's a time for rebirth, a time for regrowth. We have robins that have already, Kate literally put up ferns 2 days ago, and there's robins already building nests in the ferns, which they do every year. So it's a time for renewal. It's a time for rebirth. It's a time for us to really think about, you know, where we want to be headed in the next year. You know, a lot of people made New Year's resolutions. Most people have probably fallen off the resolutions that they've made already. So, you know, use this as an opportunity to think about where you want to be in the next year, how you're going to grow personally, how you're going to grow professionally. You know, really think about whether or not you're you know, emotionally driven person or a character driven person, just like Lawrence said. You know, is that the type of leader you want to be? What is the type of leader that you want to be? Because in our business, we're all leaders. You know, we're all leading our team. And so we need to think about how we're presenting ourselves to the folks on our team, not only that we've sponsored into the business, but the people who sponsored us into the business. You know, we can be leaders to the people above us just as much as we can be leaders to the people below us. And so it doesn't matter where you kind of fall into that, you know, where in the business cycle that you fall into, you can still have an impact on others, whether it's people that have been in the business for a while or people that have been in the business, you know, for a short period of time. And so, you know, some of the heaviest burdens that we carry are the thoughts in our head, right? And how we deal with those thoughts and how we mold those thoughts, how we cultivate those thoughts and how we project those thoughts can make a profound difference in people's lives. And so, you know, you want to really rely on your character and not your emotions when you're doing the difficult task of leadership. And so we want to spend some time today talking about, character-driven people or leaders versus emotionally driven people and leaders. And there's some vast differences in their day and night. And, one of the first ones is, character-driven people, they do right and then they feel good. They're not looking to feel good first and then do what's right, right? They're looking to set an example for other people to follow, and they feel good because they're setting a good example for other people, not the other way around. Lawrence, you want to touch on a couple of the other qualities, characteristics?
Yeah, but even that one, do right and then feel good. For example, even there, even with family and kids and so on, you want to do the right thing rather than just, feel good about having, giving kid a candy rather than give him or her a good guidance that may not be popular. So it feels good to say, oh, my kid loves me because I give him candy. I'm giving a stupid example, but rather than, oh, my kid really doesn't like me because I insist that he or she does this or that. So there's a difference between character and feel good. So, and in our business, the same thing, to be able to always do the right thing and feel good about doing the right thing. It actually is it's enlightening, it's enlifting, it's enlightening to feel, to do the right thing and say I did the right thing. And if the consequence wasn't as what I expected, well, it doesn't matter. I did the right thing. That's what's important, rather than, just feel good and then do the right thing. The other one, for example, are you commitment driven or convenience driven? Are you driven by commitment or are you driven by convenience? What is more convenient for you, or what is more of a commitment? Convenient is just, oh, I can do this and get away with it. And commitment is, no, I'm going to do it complete and do it correct. So I'm just seeing here, the person in the mirror. Yeah, I'm just seeing a message from Martin. Yeah, you have a conversation with the person in the mirror every day, and that conversation we're now having as a spring cleaning of getting all the cobwebs in our minds, to get rid of all the cobwebs and to determine who are we, and are we character driven or emotional driven, commitment driven or convenience driven?
You're exactly right. We need to start thinking about things a little bit differently. We need to start having a different mindset. It's easy when you place a scanner to get really excited about placing that scanner, but it's not about placing the scanner. It's what you do once you place that scanner, right? And so you want to do right. You make a commitment to that practice or that position or that medical device sales rep that you're going to do whatever you need to do to be successful. That's how I was successful in medical device sales for 25 years. I look at everybody as a customer, right? And I treat them the way that I would want to be treated as a customer. And moving forward, we need to start looking a little bit differently. It's exciting. Yeah, I did that when I first got started in this business. I got excited when I placed scanners. I got excited when I placed 10 scanners. But, for me, I think I learned a valuable lesson. It's not about just placing scanners. It's about making the commitment to have them be successful in every practice that you put them in. Right. And so along with that, you want to make principle-based decisions versus, popular-based decisions. We want to be principle-based in how we're integrating these and how we're projecting ourselves professionally, personally to those around us, but professionally and to people in this business, physicians, medical device sales reps, and then you really want to let action control your attitude and not the other way around. You don't want to let attitude control your actions. One of the biggest frustrations I have in this business is I bring a medical device sales rep into the business, and they're super excited, and they're excited for a week or two, and they're excited about the concept, but they haven't really talked to anybody about the business. And 2 weeks that excitement starts to wane, right? And that's letting your attitude control your action, right? You want to let your actions control your attitude. So if you get out there, you're talking to people, you're putting people on subscriptions, you're getting excitement from physicians and buy-in from physicians, that's going to make you more positive. That's going to make you more excited. But if you don't do those things, you're probably going to get disinterested in the business very quickly because you're not seeing results. But you're not seeing results because you haven't taken action or taken the right action. So to be character driven, we need to let that action control our attitude. And then you also need to believe it and then see it. Believe in what we're doing, get out, do the work, take the action, and then you're going to see the results, right? You're going to believe it and then you're going to see it. And then all of these things combined together are going to really create momentum in your business. And when you have, a few characteristics that we talk about pretty regularly, that's going to help you drive your business. So, discipline, we need to have discipline in this business, and discipline is character driven. Habits are character driven. Consistency is character driven, not emotionally driven. So discipline leads to habits, and then those habits lead to consistency. And then that consistency is what leads us to growth. The people in this business that I see being successful, and the people in this business that I see on an upward trend every month, seeing results, are those people that have that discipline, that create those habits, and then are consistent in those habits. That helps them grow. And people that are emotionally driven, let their emotions drive what they're doing, and drive their actions and drive their attitude and those things. And so I don't see them being quite as successful because they're much more emotionally driven, not only in their leadership style, but in their actions, everything that they do, how they approach the business, and then, making that commitment. But the commitment, it's a false commitment because they haven't set a timeline on that commitment. They've said, okay, they just go out and do it. They haven't set any goals. They haven't set any, success measurements. They haven't set any, lead or lag measures, the 4 disciplines that we talk about. They haven't done anything to actually see if they're seeing results, right? And then, leaders are leaders. They're steady, emotion driven people are moody, they're followers. We really want to look for people that are character driven people. They have ethics, morals. They're, one of the monikers we use for our team is habits: honesty, accountability, belief, integrity, and teamwork. Those are the people that we want to look for, because those are going to be good team members, right? They're character driven, and they have those habits that I talked about. They have that discipline, they've got the habits, and they have the consistency. And if they don't have that, that can be cultivated. It's just, as leaders, having those character driven characteristics are going to help us lead people and pull those characteristics out in them.
Yeah, when we're talking about the lead and the lag and so on, that we've always talked about the 4 principles, and when we're talking about attitude when we're talking about character as opposed to emotion, well, action you can measure, emotion you can't. And if there's something you can measure, then it's something that you can improve on, because you can identify a starting point. Whereas an emotion, it's etheric. You can't really see it. It's just something you feel. So when we create momentum, even there, we create momentum, and we can measure something there. We can measure what we're doing. We can see where we start. We can see how fast we're going, or how slow we're going, how well we're doing, or what we can improve on, instead of waiting for the momentum to happen and then say, oh, oops, this is what I can improve on. But we should actually start with creating the momentum. A person with with character is a person that is responsible. He's going to say, like, for example, what are my responsibilities, as opposed to what are my rights. A person with, who's driven by emotion is saying, oh, well, I'm this is what I need to have, and this is what are my rights, and this is what I've been promised, and so on. Whereas a person with character will say, okay, how can I make this better for everybody? What can I do to improve this? What are my responsibilities? What is my role in this to help contribute to the team? Whereas a person with emotion will say, well, you know, what's in it for me, and how can I make this, how can I take advantage of this? Person with character then, you know, will add to the team by taking responsibility. And I think this is something that a lot of people forget when we're talking about a business, especially the difference between excuse me, a linear business and our business, where we're talking about entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur takes responsibility, whereas an employee is seeing what rights he's got. He's emotionally driven, whereas an entrepreneur, and this is why so many entrepreneurs fail, because, or would-be entrepreneurs fail, because they don't understand that it's up to us as entrepreneurs. It's up to the individual. It's all about our responsibility, our personality, our character to make it happen. And it's nobody else's fault if we fail. Nobody. It's not because of devaluation, because of inflation, because of the cost of gas, or whatever other excuses we want to have. Those are all just excuses. The responsibilities that we take are based on the character that we have. And it's important for us to be able to have the differentiation between the character and the emotion.
I love, talking about excuses. Excuses are things that we tell ourselves and that we tell others so that we don't have to do something. Jocko Willink says excuses are lies. And I agree with that. They're things that we lie to ourselves, we lie to others by making excuses to say why we can't do something, why we weren't successful, why we haven't made that commitment, why we haven't created those habits, that consistency. And the biggest difference between character-driven people and emotion-driven people are that emotionally driven people quit when problems arise. When the going gets tough, they get going, right? And when they're not seeing success, or they haven't seen success as quickly as they want to see success, or they're not being as successful as they want to be, or other people want them to be. When they hit that first failure, they hit that first roadblock, they're emotionally driven. Oh, you know what? This isn't for me. It's too hard. It's, physicians aren't interested in this. Medical device sales reps aren't, whatever. They make excuses, right? Character-driven people, they continue when problems arise. They figure out ways to get past those failures and utilize those failures as a way to succeed, right? And so emotion-based companies, when you look at companies and you look at their leadership styles, emotion-based companies allow the atmosphere to determine their action. And character-driven companies, character-based companies, allow the action to determine the atmosphere. Right? So there's a great story about Apple and Microsoft. And if you look at where they're at today, you can see why. Apple was always character-based company. They wanted to put out the best products they possibly could. And they let that determine their atmosphere, their success, how they were going to get there, where they are in the marketplace. And Microsoft was always looking at Apple and what Apple's doing and how they're going to react. So they were being very reactive. And, look at what Apple's done in the last, it hasn't even been that long, since the iPhone came out in 2007. It's been 14, 15 years. They've turned into a juggernaut in the electronics industry. And that's because they're character-based. Their leaders were character-based. They led with those characteristics. And, we want to be a character-based, we want to create a character-based company for ourselves, and utilizing those characteristics of a character-based leadership style. And, when you start making excuses, when you start looking at your success always comes at a price, right? I've talked about this in my medical device career. I put in 16-hour days, 20-hour days, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to be successful in that business, because other people weren't willing to do that. All I had to do was work more, be more available than the next guy. And if I wasn't, they'd call the next guy that was available. And so, that's a lesson that I learned a long time ago, is that success always comes at a price. You can either pay now and play later, or you can play now and pay later. And I always, either way, you're going to pay. And I always had the attitude that I was going to pay now while I was young, while I could work those hours, and I was going to be, which was going to allow me to play later. Right. And so, you know, what we really want to do is create a climate for potential leaders. And creating that climate, that also, you know, you also have to pay a price for that. And one of those things, and I don't even consider it paying a price, is, you know, looking at how I'm going to grow personally, how I'm going to grow professionally. I always have the attitude that I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And what are those things that I can do to achieve that? You know, is it, you know, making one person smile today that smiles back at me and, you know, makes me feel good about myself? Is it, you know, making a donation to something tomorrow that I believe in? You know, what are those things that are going to make you feel good about what you're doing, your attitude, your mindset? But you're not doing it necessarily for that feel good for you. I always start with doing it for others, and then because of that, I feel good. So, you know, I think we really want to have these character-driven characteristics. You know, we want to feel good, do right, then feel good. You know, we want to be commitment-driven. We want to make principle-based decisions. Let our action control our attitude. Create momentum, like Lauren said. You know, what are my responsibilities? Don't ask, what are my rights? Continue when problems arise. Be steady and be a leader.
You know, talking about leadership, I want to confess that I really screwed up this week. And leadership is being able to introspect and to have the courage to recognize our shortcomings and to be able to, and it's all part of our character. If we're leaders, the character of a leader is to be brutal with oneself, and also to let the ego go aside, put the ego aside and look at something as a not from the emotional side, from the character side. So I want to just talk about something that I did this week that I thought was bad. Well, it was bad. You know, this week I was doing a three-way. I did many three-ways with John. I don't know if he's on the call today. Yeah, he is. So I did many three-ways with John. And one of them, towards the end of the day, I actually was mechanical about all these calls. And eventually we get mechanical instead of understanding that we're talking to real people and that they have emotions and we've got to listen to them. And we kind of become mechanical. And I kind of dumped on this person that was John's, the person that he had found. And I really switched that person off by just being mechanical and dumping on that person. And I talked without actually listening and asking questions. So I'm saying that even though, you know, I think I'm pretty experienced and I think I'm pretty good, relatively good at what I do, it's important also to realize that it doesn't always go well, doesn't always go perfectly. And we've got to continually take stock of where we are, what we're doing, how well we're doing it, if we're doing it well, and so on. And this is something that I think is important as a character, to be able to recognize, ooh, I really slipped up there. And how and what did I do wrong? Or what could I have done better? And to talk about it. Because it's important to be transparent. It's important to have the courage to be able to say, I'm so sorry, I really screwed up there, it's my fault. And that's what I think character is about, as opposed to emotion. Say, oh, never mind, you know, it doesn't matter. I didn't really. You make excuses, which is not right.
Yeah, you know, part of being a good leader, being character driven, is being able to put your ego to the side and be introspective and learn from your mistakes, learn from your daily actions. be willing to pay the price to be a perpetual learner, whether it's learning from a book, learning from a leader, learning from somebody on your team, learning from your wife, learning from your significant other, learning from your children. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's learning opportunities everywhere. And successful leaders recognize that personal growth and the development of leadership skills are lifetime pursuits, right? So, the capacity to develop and improve those skills is what distinguishes leaders from their followers. You're constantly growing personally, professionally, and then transferring those characteristics and those habits up to those people around you.
So we're almost at time. I'm wondering, Dan, if you like, if anybody's got any comments or anything they'd like to add to what we talked about today. Anybody wants to say anything?
Yeah, I'll say something. Yeah, Lawrence, don't worry about that. I mean, things happen, and I still appreciate all you've done for me. So, but I have a question. So, how do we switch that mindset of a person, or how do we direct them to, work on being less emotional and more, more of a leader, and instead of just being driven by emotions? Is it self-help through reading, or what do you advise for people to do to work on that?
I think it's a number of things. I think it's being able to point them in the right direction of something they can read to help cultivate that. There's a lot of great books out there. I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink because he gives it to you straight, but he uses real world examples. It's really taking responsibility for yourself and not placing the blame on other people. Being introspective, and as leaders, we need to also be able to have those hard conversations out of love or caring or compassion or whatever it may be with those people on our team, to help them grow. As leaders, our goal should be to help cultivate new leaders, right? And if somebody wants to be a leader, we need to lead by example, and hopefully some of that's going to rub off. Like I said, as leaders, we need to be perpetual leaders or perpetual learners, because leadership doesn't happen overnight. It happens on a continual basis from the time we're born till the time we're no longer here. And so you need to be open-minded to be able to learn every single day. And I find little leadership tidbits and lots of things, posts on Instagram, posts on Facebook. I've got an awesome book here, and this gives me a lot of ideas for our talks. This John C. Maxwell, the Maxwell Daily Reader. It's got one talk in here, one page for every day of the year. It's a phenomenal resource for me. I use it a lot. I constantly have the 4 disciplines of execution. Just teaching the leadership styles that we're teaching and that we're learning on these calls, to help cultivate those people and cultivate those character-driven characteristics.
I used to do corporate team building, and we'd have a bowl in the middle, and everybody would get a little piece of paper with something to write on. And then we'd say, okay, would everybody tell what you think about Dan Burke? Or would everybody say what you think about Lawrence, Cazan, Cassini? What do you think about that person? Without putting who wrote it. And you put that into that little bowl, and then somebody would read it, and somebody would say, I think he's an arrogant so-and-so. Or somebody would say, I think he's great, or whatever it was. And I think that was in a group setting. But I think as a team also, it's important that we consider the team as a group of friends, that we rely on each other. And if we have something to say, I think we should say it. I think you could improve this, or I think this needs to be improved, or I think you should hold off a little bit on that, or whatever it is, and discuss it without being offensive, and without being offended. Because this is what's important, is when we are able to listen and analyze critics. And critics are often, I mean, if they're mischievous or they're malicious or something, obviously you're not interested. But if somebody really cares about you, and I've said this to some people of our team, on our team, I'm only telling you because I really care. If I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything. Go do your own thing. But because I care, I will let it all hang out, as it were, and let's talk without trousers on, as my expression is always, to be really frank about things.
Now, emotion's not bad. Some people are more emotional than others, but we don't want that to drive us, because that can really help take us down a path that we don't necessarily want to go down. I mean, there's certain situations, sure, where emotion should be, I don't want to say allowed, but where emotion's going to happen and there's a place for it. But we really want to think about these character-driven qualities when we're looking at an organization and our leadership style. Michael Cook, comment in here, show up. Get these people to show up. When they show up, they're letting their actions control their attitude. Right? They're showing up, they're showing that they want to be successful, they're showing they want to be part of the team, they're showing that they want to learn to be successful in this business. And so they should be getting on these calls when they can. They don't need to get on every call. But there's something for everybody on all of these Monday, Wednesday, Friday calls. You just need to figure out which one's the right one for you and which one you're going to get the most out of.
By the way, there's a difference between an emotional decision and a gut feeling. The gut feeling comes from experience, and we should often listen to the gut feeling as well, or take it into account, because the emotion is one thing that would show you what's expedient and what's not, but the gut feeling is something that is a sixth sense that we cultivate also, and that is also part of our personality and our character and so on. So, and as you say, Dan, being consistent and showing up and so on. So coaches and teachers grade and criticize because they want to be successful. There you go. Thank you, James. That's right. It's important to be able to be open and frank. That's what it's about, without being offended.
So I have a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so would you say that these calls each week are really an important part of doing this business?
I would say in the early stages, especially when you're first getting into the business,
Mm-hmm.
I think these calls are, paramount to helping you get situated in the business, get comfortable in the business, get comfortable talking about the business. Our Friday calls a little bit different. The Monday, Wednesday calls, I think are, for somebody new getting into the business, I think they're really, really important.
Right.
For somebody who's been in the business a while, maybe not quite so important, but if you have new people that you've brought into this business and they're getting on those calls, you should be on those calls to support them, right? To show them that it's important to be on those calls.
So as a leader, how do you effectively get that accomplished in terms of getting them making sure, at least ensuring for yourself that, yeah, they're getting on these calls, so they're moving on the right path. Or if you find, I tell them and it's like, they never do it, I'm moving on,
just remind them, send them a text message the night before, send them an email the night before, send them a text message 15 minutes before the call, just as a reminder, because when people are reminded of something, they're much more likely to do it.
Right.
Not everybody puts it in their calendar. Not everybody knows how to put it in their calendar. There's a bunch of different variables, but if you make it easy for them where they don't have to think about it, at least early on, until it becomes a habit that they're getting on the calls, the easier we can make it for them, the better. I mean, I have some accounts that I actually have them send me their order forms because it's easier for them to not have to do that, at least early on, until they get through the newness of integrating the scanner, which takes them a little bit of time, and then placing, I don't want them to have to place those orders on top of that if they're uncomfortable doing that, if it's taking up more time. I just say, send them to me, I'll put the orders in.
Yeah.
You know, the
Okay.
easier you can make this for people, whether it's a rep coming into the business, a doctor that's working the business, or a doctor that's utilizing, physician that's utilizing this in practice, our goal is to make this as seamless and as easy as possible for them to integrate it. And after a month, you know, if they're sending me order forms for a month, after the month, I say, you know what, you guys are doing great. It's not going to take you that long to do the order forms. Just, you know, slowly add this in, because I can't continue to do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
always-
know, Deborah Hanek put a comment in there too. It's okay to walk away from prospects. But usually you're right. But usually what I find is they walk away from us because they're not participating in the activities. You know, if someone's picked for a team or in school and you don't show up, what happens, right? You're dropped from the team. You know, they're expelled from school. If you've got to show up, you've got to go to the trainings. I tell everyone when they join the business to put every one of our meetings in their, like Dan said, in their calendar. I had them in mind with a little alarm that dings, you know, 10 minutes before the meeting starts. And that's just to remind me that the meeting's coming up, and maybe I am doing something that I can't get on the call or whatever, but at least I know it's going on. And in the beginning, it is crucial to get the training started. You know, nobody's picked for a team and doesn't show up to the first 5 practices. It doesn't happen. So in that case, they walked away from us. We didn't walk away from them, and it's okay to let them go. If it's not, you know, if they're not going to participate and drive themselves, then that's okay. And we're talking about emotion earlier too. And, you know, we've got a choice to either let our emotions drive us or use our emotions to drive ourselves. You know, we're either going to be a victim or in control of our emotions. We're human beings. That's the way it is. And that is a self-discipline that we learn by showing up on these mindset calls and reading. So it's a great call today, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. I just want to say that when we're talking about people leaving us, well, if they leave us, we've got to look at that and say, why? Did we not explain it right? Did they not see the bigger picture? Is it their problem or is it our problem? Is it my problem that somebody left me, or I'm just the example. If it's somebody that left me, is it because I didn't explain it right? Is it because I did something that wasn't well communicated? Or is it a person who's just absolutely not on the same wavelength? So, you know, if somebody doesn't engage in the business, I think it's important to see, first of all, why. I always ask why about everything. Why did they not engage? I mean, they've got all the right ingredients, whatever it is. Why? And we've got to find that why of that person. What is it that turned them off? For example, one of the things that is a problem in our business is that you only invest $3,500 or $25 or whatever, $3,500 to get a scanner and to start a business. If you invested $200,000 in a business, you would have a hell of a different attitude, because you don't want to lose that $200,000, and you would go with the bumps, and you would, you know, the ups and downs, and you'd make sure that you continue and you stick to it and you stick by it, because you don't want to lose the money. With $3,000, $3,500, it's almost, so what? Oh, I tried, that didn't work. And it's just too easy to walk away from something like that in terms of a business. In terms of our calls, well, it's up to us to make it interesting enough and engaging enough for people to stay on our calls and to come on our calls and to increase the number and say, wow, that was a really good call. You got to come onto these calls. You got to listen to Mansi and Ken's call on Wednesday, and you got to listen to, you know, Scott's call on Monday. And there's always some good stuff to learn. It's up to us then to be able to be sufficiently enthusiastically engaged to be able to invite others and to be engaged ourselves.
But,
I think it's also a responsibility of leadership to actually show up on these calls, because when we look, if this call had only 3 or 4 people on it, it's not very inspiring. But it is part of our responsibility in a leadership role to be on these calls and to participate and to be part of this group. If we don't show that example, how is anybody else going to follow that example? We have to show it first. And Lawrence, as regards that question as to why the people left us, I mean, great question. And some people are here for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. But I think it is up to us to look at that circumstance and say, did we make this? Did we help them perceive this as a high enough priority that it was really worth their time to make the commitment?
Great.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, if we've done everything that we can do as leaders and somebody walks away, then we can feel good that we've done everything that we possibly could have done, right? But if we're not character driven and we're emotional driven, and somebody says, you know what, I'm just not sure this is right for me, or they ghost us for a week, and we're emotionally driven, we say, oh, you know what, I don't want them on my team anyways. You know, you got to give them a chance, and you got to give you a chance to lead them properly. And if they can still walk away, then, you know, walk away on good terms. Don't burn any bridges. I mean, I have an example of that. A guy who came in, he placed a couple of scanners, and then he kind of got busy doing other things, and he walked away. But I call him every week, and I just say, hey, how you doing? How's the family doing? And, you know, every single time I can get him to give me a couple of names of some people that I can contact. And so, you know, even though it's not right for them, doesn't mean that they don't know somebody that it might be right for. And a lot of times it's just because they've got something else they're doing that they need to be focused on.
It's interesting. Earlier this week, Carol had a conversation with one of our physician clients who's a scanner operator. And she said, you know, if you hadn't stuck with me, I wouldn't have stuck with this business. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm astonished at how you kept coming back over and over and over more than a year. And she said, and that's what made me stick. Something to think about. Persistence,
right? If you show other people that this is a high enough priority in your life, then maybe they think that it should be a high enough priority in their life or their business.
It's values leadership.
Yeah, I think what Lawrence touched on here just in the last part of this conversation was a great explanation of extreme ownership by Jocko Willink. And then Martin, you just stepped in with a perfect example of it. And although Dan's right that it's persistence, but that persistence is really just an example of extreme ownership. You and Carol took ownership of that person. Let's face it, if you dedicate your time and get 6 people, you know, that just won't leave you because you never left them, you have got a lifetime business for yourself.
No question.
Let action control attitude.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly what she did. She went and she showed that physician by showing up on a regular basis that it was important.
Yeah, she could have so easily gotten emotionally, oh, they're just not, they don't pay attention, they drive me crazy. Any excuse that you can come up with, as opposed to, I'm not worried about that. I'm calling him today. I'll call him next week. I'll call him the week after that. Those are just taking actions, you know.
Got a perfect example of that. We've got a rep, 40 years in the business, 40 years in medical device sales. He got his scanner, didn't do anything with it. Somebody else on our team went up there and spent a couple of days with him. They went out and made 10 or 12 sales calls, had some really good feedback from physicians, and that didn't go anywhere. I don't know, because it was I think it was partially a follow-up issue. Partially, it wasn't as easy as the guy thought it was going to be. And, now he hasn't really done anything. And you talk to him, he's like, I just lost my motivation. Well, I mean, if that's all it takes for you to lose your motivation, I don't know how you've been successful in anything.
No kidding.
I mean, I really don't. I mean, I pride
That's
myself.
the salary man, non-entrepreneur type mindset.
Exactly. I mean,
I'm unwilling. It's waiting for the boiler to give you heat before you put some wood in it.
Yeah, I'm unwilling to fail at anything. If I if I had made the decision 6 months into this business that if I didn't place a scanner in 6 months, I was going to leave this business, I wouldn't be here right now. Because I didn't place a scanner in my first 6 months. So, it's all about that. You're going to have pain points, you're going to have failures. How do you get past them? Pay now, play later, play now, pay later. Either way, you're going to pay.
Yep.
Good job. Thank you. Love it. Well, it's 10:17. Thanks, everybody. Anybody else got anything? All right. Dan, thank you so much. Thanks, Martin and Michael and Jim and everybody for your input. John, thanks, everybody. And let's see if we can inspire people to to join these calls.
Yeah.
And how we can make them better. I mean, we're open to suggestions as well. We'd like from you input from you guys. How can we make this better? What can we do to make it better?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody next Friday. Bring along a couple of friends.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds.
Have a nice Easter, everybody.
All right. You too.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Appreciate the call. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.